Most people think Dragon Ball is just transformations and aura farming, but Goku spends his entire life facing stronger opponents, forging bonds, and learning to accept who he is, and in doing so he's secretly teaching us the meaning of life. Today we're analyzing Goku not as a fighter but as a philosopher. I've mapped his journey to the world's greatest existentialist thinkers, and by the end of this video, you'll never see Goku or life the same way again. Imagine pushing a boulder up a mountain that will never reach the top. Most people would find this task utterly meaningless. However, when Albert Camus famously wrote his essay on the myth of Sisyphus, he was asking humanity an important question. He asks, can you imagine Sisyphus happy? Goku answers yes. The reason why Goku would say this is because he has lived a Sisyphean task his entire life. Goku's life is a series of battles and training arcs where he gets stronger and faces off against opponents that are stronger than the ones that have come before. However, what's interesting here is that no matter how strong Goku gets, there is always someone stronger. Even as he surpasses the ability to destroy planets, solar systems, and even entire galaxies, he always finds someone stronger. However, we never see a sad face on Goku even when he finds someone stronger than him. For Goku, getting stronger is what defines his identity. Getting stronger for Goku isn't a means to get anything else, and he genuinely enjoys the process of breaking his limits time and time again. Therefore, finding newer and stronger opponents is just the cherry on top for him. The myth of Sisyphus is a metaphor for humanity's ability to find meaning in a meaningless task. With that being said, if Goku's life is a 45-year-long Sisyphean task, Goku is Sisyphus at his most happy. When people think about Goku, the first thing they probably think about isn't identity or existential agency. However, the choice to define yourself and to choose who you are is very important to existentialist philosophy. Goku's choice to live martial arts as a way of being signifies his existential agency as a person. Getting stronger for Goku is an expression of the lessons he learned as a child. Let's explore the identity Goku chooses to define himself by. For those that didn't watch the original Dragon Ball, Goku started learning martial arts when he was a child. Fun fact, Goku actually has the exact same origin story as Superman right up until he makes his way to Earth. When Goku makes it to Earth, he meets an old martial artist named Gohan who raises him and teaches him martial arts. His identity as a martial artist starts here. After Goku's adoptive grandfather dies, Goku lives on that same mountain by himself. Bulma finds him and then the journey begins. However, those core martial arts teachings about defending the weak and not using your abilities to hurt others stuck with him for his entire life. Goku goes on to name his firstborn son Gohan after his grandpa. This choice to define himself as a martial artist and find joy in getting stronger and breaking his limits is a perfect example of what French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre calls existence precedes essence. What this phrase means is that you always have the choice in the kind of person you are going to be. Goku defines his life and therefore his connections to others by his relationship with martial arts. His grandfather not only gave him his name Goku, but he taught Goku a language which he uses to express himself. He loves to spar with his friends, his children, and he even fought a tournament match with his wife before they got married. This is the exact reason why most of his friends are either former rivals or people who tried to destroy the world. He chooses not to kill these people because he knows that if he chooses to be a martial artist and live his life with discipline, they can choose to be a better person. He later learns that he can't do that with everyone and he learns to accept that, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Ultimately, if you ask Goku, would you live your life over and over and over again from beginning to end, would you do it? In my opinion, he would say yes. And he would say yes every single time. In my opinion, Goku isn't headed towards any particular power level destination. So if he gets to experience the ride from building level to multi-galaxy level over and over and over again, he probably wouldn't mind. Goku is a simple man, and if he gets to wake up, eat well, train and rest, then that was a day well spent for him. This is the question of eternal recurrence from the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. The point of the question is to get you to think about the ways in which you are living your life and to hopefully persuade you into living your life in a way that aligns with your personal identity. What that looks like for Goku is training really hard. For me, it's making video essays and drawing, so if you're enjoying the video, like and subscribe. Ultimately, Goku teaches us 4 paths to create meaning. The first is that there is meaning to be found in defining yourself, and that there is also meaning to be found through struggle. The second path is the thesis of the next part of this video. Goku's journey didn't stop at Grandpa Gohan. Eventually, he meets Muten Roshi. Most people think that Roshi is a simple footnote in Goku's journey. However, that simply isn't true. The lessons he learns with Roshi become a fundamental part of how he understands life. For those that haven't seen the original Dragon Ball, Master Roshi is the pervy old man who invented the Kamehameha. However, the most important thing he learned from Roshi wasn't the Kamehameha or even how to fly. The most important thing he learned from Roshi was actually the philosophical lessons. Master Roshi is the master of the Turtle School of Martial Arts, which is why he holds the turtle shell on his back. The Turtle School's motto is
work hard, study well, and eat and sleep plenty.
Roshi advocated for a balanced lifestyle where rest was just as important as striving to face stronger opponents. These lessons were instilled so deeply as a boy that when Goku was teaching his own son how to become a Super Saiyan, he instilled the lesson that rest is important almost 30 to 40 years later.
Sometimes rest is as important as training, maybe even more important.
All of the connections Goku made over the course of his life, Master Roshi is partially responsible for, specifically because it is this Turtle School mindset that drives Goku to keep striving for stronger. And because he keeps striving for stronger, he keeps meeting new friends. Roshi went as far as to enter a tournament with Goku dressed as another person, just to make sure that the lesson that there will always be stronger people out there stuck through. This is a perfect example of intersubjectivity. Intersubjectivity by Jean-Paul Sartre is the idea that one can discover oneself in another person. Even when people have done extremely heinous things, he is always careful not to take a life unless absolutely necessary. This is partially why he ends up getting so strong by the end of the story. He forges bonds of connection, and those bonds of connection either push him forward or allow him to meet mentors who can help Goku reach even greater heights. This communal perspective is also why Goku is usually stronger than Vegeta, but the point is that Goku sees himself in other people, and that's why he lets them go. Goku, despite not being human, recognizes the potential of the fighters he faces and knows deep down inside, if they tried, they could probably be a better person, so he gives them an opportunity to try. So as stated previously, Goku teaches us 4 paths to find meaning. The second is to forge bonds, recognize the humanity in others, and to find the balance between taxing your mind and body and resting. The third path is the topic of the next chapter. Before we talk about the end of the Namek Saga, we have to rewind and talk about the primary antagonist at this point in the story. The reason why is that understanding Goku's opposite in the Namek Saga, we can gain greater context for the completion of Goku's arc of self-acceptance. So let's talk about Frieza for a second. Frieza is one of Dragon Ball's most iconic characters. He is famous for his warmongering, his cruelty, and most of all, his racism. In the story, he calls many Saiyans monkey, including Goku.
Saiyan can't beat me. A monkey can't beat me. Round and round the monkey goes. Monkey.
The word monkey, when said by Frieza in this context, is obviously derogatory, but there is something more insidious at play here. When he calls Goku a monkey, he reduces Goku down to his biology and his ability to become an Ozaru. To use an existentialist term, he is doing something called essentializing. Simone de Beauvoir has a lot to say about this. Simone de Beauvoir's concept of transcendence and immanence can help us greater understand the way Frieza uses the word monkey. In her most important work, The Second Sex, she details the ways in which the world forces women into boxes made of static and passive identities. Essentially, she argues that in comparison, men get to be full, three-dimensional people. The same can be said for Frieza when he calls Saiyans monkeys. Frieza's preconceived notions about who a Saiyan can be is entirely revealed when he uses the word monkey in that way. He uses the word monkey in this context to dehumanize Saiyans and to objectify them. However, sometimes tools can be dangerous. Frieza knows the potential of Saiyans and their tendency to go stronger, so he uses the word monkey to demean them and to put them down, because if a Saiyan ever decided that he wanted to be more than a monkey and more than the passive identity Frieza has assigned to them, he could be dangerous, which is why Frieza committed a genocide. There is a very special moment in the Namek Saga that explains everything that I've been talking about so far. Let's talk about Frieza's greatest fear. Without further ado, let's talk about Super Saiyan and the myth surrounding it. One of the primary themes of the Namek Saga is the myth of the Super Saiyan. Many characters bring it up, and because of that, it becomes a specter haunting the story until the very end. Super Saiyan, in my opinion, is a metaphor for self-acceptance. Since the Saiyan Saga, Goku's had to wrestle with the fact that he very well could be different than all of his friends on Earth. He had to deal with the fact that he has this part of himself that he has no real way of understanding and that has only existed in negative context for him. It was the Saiyans that hurt all of his friends, it was the Saiyans that kidnapped his only son, and it was his ability to become an Ozaru, a trademark of the Saiyans, that accidentally killed his grandpa.
Then the monster that stomped my grandpa Gohan to death and smashed up the tournament grounds all those years ago, that was me, wasn't it?
Thus far, he only has a negative context for Saiyans and Saiyan culture. Vegeta is an important part of this arc because he is the only person alive who remembers Saiyan culture for what it was. This is why he projects the idea that Goku won't be a Super Saiyan, because how could he be? He's too kind-hearted and he's too soft. Vegeta does exactly what Simone de Beauvoir was talking about in The Second Sex. He forces Goku in a box based on preconceived notions about Goku's ability. He quite literally makes a commentary about Goku's ability to transform. Vegeta's ideas about patriarchy and Saiyan social hierarchy once again block him from seeing Goku as the person he is. But Goku does transform and he does become the Super Saiyan foretold in legend. Super Saiyan comes after a long internal battle within himself debating whether he will accept his own identity as a Saiyan. When he transforms, Goku's forced to have an answer. The answer isn't self-hatred or denial. He accepts his identity and the strength it provides. Super Saiyan is special because of a lot of reasons. However, in the context of the story, it's special because he proves two people wrong. He proves to Frieza that Saiyans are more than the prescribed passive identity Frieza places onto him, and he proves to Vegeta that Saiyans are more than the hyper-masculine, hyper-violent identity that Vegeta thought was required to reach Super Saiyan in the first place. The arc ends with Goku attempting to save Frieza even after all that he'd done. Goku still holds on to those Turtle School's teachings, but Frieza proves that he wasn't worth the effort, and this deep sense of remorse that Goku feels is so important, because it reveals so much about his character. Goku feels empathy, and taking a life clearly makes him uncomfortable, because Goku knows that if Frieza tried, he could become a better person. However, Frieza is existing in good faith. The warmongering tyrant is who Frieza wants to be, and he is using his existential agency to continue being that person. Frieza rejects Sarda's intersubjectivity because he doesn't care that we all have a responsibility to recognize the personhood of other people. Goku has to recognize this reality and put him down. Goku teaches us 4 paths to creating meaning. The third path is self-acceptance. Existing authentically as yourself and accepting parts of yourself that at first seem strange and foreign is an important part of living an authentic life. For Goku, that means allowing himself to be called both Kakarot and Goku by the people that care about him, because Kakarot and Goku are the same man. The first 3 parts of this video follow Goku's life from actively choosing the kind of person he's going to be, dissecting who that person is, and then exploring the contradiction between his chosen identity and Saiyan nature. We've explored his life thus far from an existential lens. Now it's time to understand Goku's perspective on death. Goku dies twice within the story of Dragon Ball, and both of them are to save his firstborn son Gohan. Unfortunately, as I'll explain later, certain events in the story don't allow him to live in the afterlife peacefully. The second death is his sacrifice against Cell, which is where he chose to die. However, Goku choosing to die specifically to save his son says a lot about Goku. It says that on some level he understands that life has very little meaning without the finality of death. I'll explain what I mean in a second, so put a pin in this. Originally he says that he's chosen to stay dead specifically because he wants new threats to stop showing up to fight him on Earth. However, the truth reveals itself in the final arc of the story. Goku begins to have, in my opinion, an existential crisis that becomes obvious in the third arc of the story. But I believe this internal crisis starts in the Cell Saga. Remember when Goku had that heart virus? He took the medicine, but the virus was very close to killing Goku. In my opinion, I believe this was the catalyst that made him reconsider a few things in life. Now it's time to unpin what I was talking about earlier. This reconsideration after an experience of death reminds me of German philosopher Martin Heidegger's being toward death. Being toward death is the idea that because you know you are going to die, you start to align your actions and your perspective with the reality that is your own mortality. But being toward death isn't necessarily about contemplation. It's about unlocking a whole new level of authentic living because you know you only have finite time on the planet. So with that in mind, Goku chooses to live his second chance at life, spending time with his only son. He decides to teach him how to become a Super Saiyan and imparts lessons he learned when he was a kid. On some level, I think it's touching that after a close call with death, Goku's first thought was to spend time with his family. But in this moment, Goku actually has more than one motive. On some level, Goku realizes that he's had one too many death scenarios. So at this point, he realizes he needs a successor and he chooses Gohan. Ultimately, Gohan proves Goku right and he does have the power to defeat Cell. And Goku assumes at this point that Gohan would make a fine successor. Unfortunately, Goku is wrong. In a moment, I'll explain why Gohan and nearly every member of the Z Fighters failed to become the primary defender of Earth, thereby worsening Goku's existential crisis. But first, let me talk about the second most iconic transformation right behind Super Saiyan. Let's go.
Even further beyond!
There's something deeply fascinating about Goku's perspective in the Buu arc of Dragon Ball Z. Goku's existential crisis that began forming in the previous arc seemed to reach its apex in the Buu saga. This existential crisis signifies an acute awareness about his own mortality. A character that believes he can live forever in the same plane of existence doesn't start questioning his existence the same way Goku does. He starts acting as a mentor, guiding the next generation because that's what his traditional martial arts identity compels him to do when faced with his own mortality. This again is Martin Heidegger's being toward death and Jean-Paul Sartre's good faith. Existing in bad faith would be completely denying that he needs a successor and proceeding to do nothing. But Goku doesn't do that. He cares about the world, expressing Jean-Paul Sartre's intersubjectivity, and he trains a few successors. He says a few times that he knows that he won't be around forever and that he wants to give others a shot at being the Earth's defender. This is precisely why he chooses not to destroy Majin Buu when he transforms into the third iteration of the Super Saiyan transformation. But let's talk about Super Saiyan 3 for a moment. Most people think Super Saiyan 3 is just another transformation for hype and aura purposes, but this transformation is more than that. In my opinion, Super Saiyan 3 is a metaphor for death. Have you ever considered why Super Saiyan 3 looks the way it does? I have a theory. The hair extends far beyond his head and shoulders, nearly tripling the amount of hair in comparison to the original Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2. What this says to me is that finality is being communicated in its design philosophy. But finality and death aren't necessarily the same thing. What led me to conclude that Super Saiyan 3 is a death metaphor is the context in which it appears in the story. Put a pin in this because it's going to be relevant again in about a second. While teaching Goten and Trunks the Metamorph fusion technique, Goku is on a time crunch for one specific reason. The reason why is that Goku is dead for this entire arc of the story. He initially comes back just for the tournament and to say hi to everyone, but he does have a time limit. But during this time crunch to teach boys fusion, Buu begins destroying cities. Trunks has to go to West City to grab the Dragon Radar so they can whisk people back. Therefore, Goku has to fight Majin Buu to buy Trunks time. Take the pin out because this is the context in which Super Saiyan 3 is revealed. Super Saiyan 3 in this case is a visual reminder that Goku is dead, he is exhausted, and that he shouldn't be here. It takes so much of your energy to even transform into a Super Saiyan 3 that maintaining it literally exhausts the temporary time Goku has on Earth. Super Saiyan 3 in the context of the original story is a transformation that kills you. It represents the crushing reality that everyone failed to become the primary protector of the planet. This reality slowly kills Goku as he exhausts his energy giving time for Trunks. Imagine how Goku must feel in this moment. He just wanted to experience a fun day with his family before ultimately going back to being dead. But he sees where they are and it's utterly disappointing. Unfortunately, Goku's last few hours on Earth are spent training children. Goku dies knowing his existential nightmare came true. Without further ado, let's talk about the mystery of what happened with Goku's legacy. Through understanding why no one could fill Goku's role as the primary protector of Earth, we can gain an even greater understanding of what makes Goku so special. Here's the problem. It was never that his friends and family failed, but rather they couldn't fill the role of the strongest. The solution to this problem is finding a very specific combination of traits that make Goku who he is. This solution goes back to the very beginning of this video. You have to find someone who is willing to take on the Sisyphean task of always chasing greater strength. That same person has to have a communal understanding of training as well. It can't just be someone who will always seek new strength because then Vegeta could do it. Goku is usually stronger than Vegeta specifically because he knows when to rest because of Roshi. Also because he understands that having a training partner and allowing yourself to have a mentor is a good thing. All of these things come from his background and upbringing as a traditional martial artist. It is these two specific traits that make Goku so special and inform his perspective about both life and death. It's exactly as I said in part 3. His Saiyan genetics and his traditional martial arts upbringing have created a truly unique person worthy of being called a philosopher. This identity Goku forged over the course of his life, born from Saiyan blood and decades of training, is hard to replicate. Ultimately, personally training someone that will hold his ideals and defend the planet like he would is exactly what was needed for Goku to finally rest. Knowing this, he tried time and time again to get someone to play his role, but what he didn't understand is that Gohan, Goten, and Trunks aren't people who enjoy training and getting stronger as a way of life. All three of them don't truly understand the lesson that Roshi taught Goku in a disguise all those years ago. There will always be a stronger opponent and there will always be new heights of power to achieve. He taught all of those lessons presumably to Oob. So that was a whole lot of philosophical and subtextual analysis, so let's answer the question that started this section of the video. What is Goku's perspective on death in a world where one can wish themselves to be immortal? Goku says that death is a choice and that choice matters. Goku died when his friends friends and family weren't necessarily ready for him to die. So he needed to stay around a little while longer so that he can impart the lessons he learned from his grandpa Gohan and Roshi onto a student of his own. As mentioned previously, all the way at the beginning of the video, Goku shows us 4 paths to create meaning. The 4th path is to live your life knowing that time is limited and to forge lasting connections that stay long after you pass away.
Keep the fire going, alright, for all the things that you're passionate about.
This video explored Goku's life story through multiple philosophical perspectives, but now we must bring all of this perspective together for the conclusion. Goku is a character with many layers, and each time we peeled back a layer, we found more interesting things to discuss. But what does it all mean? When we look at Goku as a philosopher instead of as a character or as a fighter, we can easily understand how he redefines the search for meaning. I use the idea of the paths he provides us for understanding, but the truth is that Goku walks all of these paths simultaneously, and so should we. We can follow the path of self-acceptance while also following the path of being toward death. We can do this because he already gave us the blueprint already. We must follow the turtle hermit way. We must work hard, study hard, eat well, and sleep plenty. We must learn to understand ourselves while also learning to choose who we are. Mastering selfhood is a journey that takes decades, and not everyone finds an identity that matches well with who they are on the first try like Goku does. What I'm saying is that Goku secretly taught everyone the meaning of life by proving that life's journey is about becoming yourself. If you enjoyed this essay, check out my 2 previous essays about Death Note and the elements of Japanese society that created the story. If you connected with this video and want to help me keep making videos like this, you can join the Patreon link below. Otherwise, peace out.
You may have invaded my mind and my body, but there's one thing a Saiyan always keeps: